Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Inside Edge Hockey Podcast. I am your co-host, Garrick Schilling. Today is October 1st, and I'm joined by Coach Joe Clark to talk about some goalie development, some scouting, how do guys get to the bigs, all that good stuff. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great. Garrick, how are you today? Happy October.
Fantastic. Yeah, happy October. My son's first spooky season, so trying to figure out what he's going to be for Halloween.
Hey, get him going. Start him early.
All right, what do we got today, Coach? What do you want to talk about?
I wanted to talk about what scouts look for in goalies, and there are obviously different levels of scouting, and different levels of play. Starting with AAA, going into juniors, going into college, going into pro. So start at the kind of the very beginning, and AAA or juniors, we can kind of mesh them together. And the things that are important to coaches and to goalie coaches. Some of these things, regular coaches, they're not familiar with goaltending as much as the goalie guys are. So they often rely on goalie coaches to scout a little bit and give them some input. Which is what I do right now with Curtis Brown and his Lincoln AAA program, about an hour away from here. So I'm on the ice a couple of times a week with his 18-year-olds and 16-year-olds, and trying to help him out, steer him in the right direction. But in the springtime, he holds tryouts, and he played a long time in the NHL, so he's got a pretty good background on his instincts anyway, and what he likes. But he relies on me to give him a little of the expertise, if you will, on very specific things that are important. So we start off with something that Chris Terreri, who was with the Islanders when I was shortly with the Islanders back in the day, uh, he would have a flow chart. He would help the scouts, the regular scouts, with a bit of a flow chart, and I think I sent it to you. Um, he would kind of go over these things in a matter of importance. So what he would pass on to these guys, uh, and I think are these are right on the money. So number one, the most important thing is skating, like your edge work and your ability to maneuver in a very tight space in the crease. And but you're skating. If you're not a good skater, you're not gonna make it. You won't be able to make the adjustments. You won't be able to make pushes. You won't be able to get to your new spot. You go from one spot to another in a matter of half a second or 1 second or 2 seconds, and you've got to do it quickly. You got to do it efficiently. So it all starts with skating, and some of the drills that you could do a million drills. There's no right or wrong ones, but the purpose of them is to work on your edge work and work on your strength and your mobility. And I think you've got some video that you can show a little bit here of some of the drills, just a couple of the many drills that we do with these Lincoln guys. And I think we'll show one of them. I call it leap of faith. And basically, you're going to take a couple of strides forward, get a little bit of momentum, and you're going to launch off of one skate, spin and land on the other skate and hold it. And then just carry on, just keep doing it. We typically do it from board to board on the blue line, just to warm up. And then we'll do. So this is a kid named Colton Dean, who has this down. He's 16 years old. He's from Phoenix, Arizona, and he's got this down pretty good. And it's just a matter of balance. Like, he looks smooth doing it, but he's been practicing it. When he first started trying this, he was a mess. It just takes repetition.
He looks
But
as not awkward as you could do in this drill, which is
well,
smooth.
I've got plenty of video of guys that look plenty awkward. But he's refined it pretty well. But notice how smooth he lands. It's almost like what figure skaters, what they work on. and they're strong. They're strong on their feet. Their edges are solid, and you're not going to see anyone do this in a game, but this is just a very small drill to work on your control, controlling your edges. Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to edge work and getting to your spot, getting there efficiently, and getting there as big as you can, and in control. Uh, the other one I think I threw on is, and this is kind of a telltale. Both of these are, but this is a real simple one where a guy is doing hops over the blue, and this has a little bit to do with leg strength, but also balance. If your shoulders are too far ahead of you, you're going to fall. You're just going to just go off kilter. And this kid does a really good job. I would consider him a good skater. He's 16, so his man strength is not there yet, but he's going to be fine. And it doesn't take long for a guy to develop pretty good skating habits and strong habits and become good at this. And but his balance is good. He's kind of almost sitting down a little bit. His butt, his rear end is kind of, it's not straight up. He's not standing straight up, almost like he's halfway in and out of a chair. And that's really what you got to do. And you got to look forward when your vision's got to be straight ahead when you're doing this. But he's a pretty good example. Not 100% absolutely perfect, but really, really strong. And I like him. So these are two very basic drills that you can do. There's 100 different drills you can do. And but I just wanted to show a couple of what we do when we get on the ice. And every time we have a session in Lincoln, I try to start with some edge work and get these guys going. And so what we look for in goaltending from a scouting perspective is number one should be skating. And every goalie coach, they're going to have their flow chart, so to speak, is going to be a little different. This is just mine and things that are important to me. And the next one is instincts. Like, what does your mind tell you to do and how to do? That's why we go back to skating. Your mind tells you, I got to do this and I got to be here. I got to get to this spot. You can't do it without skating. That's why skating is on top. But your instincts are important, and it's basically your gut feeling. And also, I kind of incorporate your compete level with instincts. How your battle level plays out in a game. Do you give up on plays, or do you battle every puck? And that's a big deal. And that's kind of part of your instincts. That's obvious to people. The guys that have been scouting for a long time, and whether you're a goalie guy or not, you can tell if a guy battles hard. And I want guys that just never, ever give up on pucks. Never. And that's just kind of a no-brainer. And I'm sure you've seen plenty of that in your day. Yes?
Yeah. Absolutely. Especially at the lower amateur levels.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can tell, as time goes on, whether you love the game or not. You may like it. Maybe you don't love it. And the guys that love it will show it. And it'll show in your instincts and your compete level. And the next item I think is really, really important is your pace or your speed. Everything you do, whether you have a quick glove, your feet are quick, you drop down in a butterfly, you're up, boom, you hit your next spot, and how fast you can do things. And some guys are not gifted with that. And they can get away with it with their instincts are really high. They can cheat a little bit, but at the higher level you go, you have to be fast. Everything you do it's got to be fast. You cannot be out of control, but your pace is extremely important. Everything you do, and whether it's you're leaving the crease to stop a hard rim, you've got to do it with pace. You got to get to your spot with pace. You got to get back in the net with pace. You got to be able to go low to high really quickly. You got to take ice away. You got to do it fast. And but you can get away with certain things. If you're at the U16, U18 level, but you hit junior hockey, and everyone around you is big and strong, and they're quick. So probably the biggest, and you can relate to this too, Gary. the biggest adjustment as you move up is speed of the game. So you go from 16 to 18s, U16 to U18. And once in a while, our U16 goalies will skate with a U18 team. We have a guy out or whatever the situation might be. And they all say the biggest thing is how fast everything is. So then you take a U18 goalie and put him in a junior setting. The first thing they always say is, I can't believe how fast everything is, right? And then you take a junior guy and throw him into a college setting, and the first thing he says, right, how fast everything is. They're surprised. So every level you move up, you have to make adjustments, and you have to be able to keep up. And this goes back to your instincts, right, and your skating. Without those things, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to move up and on, and of course your pace. So every level you move up, you've got to. It's going to be harder because everyone is bigger, everyone is stronger, and we're not even talking about traffic in front, traffic in the paint. But so moving on.
Coach, I got a
Now
quick question about pace before
what?
you move on. Uh,
Sure.
is is that something that's easier to assess in a game versus like practice or just working out with a guy?
The pace. I think you can, anytime pucks are being fired at him, I think you can figure that out pretty quickly as a scout. When you've seen a lot of goalies and, you can just tell, their fast twitch muscles, whether they're gifted or not. And, I think to answer your question, I think it doesn't matter if it's practice or games, but yeah, you can see that right away. At least anyway, and whether the kid has or not. But when they're put in really difficult situations like wide open nets, 2-on-1, passes made across, and the guy's got a wide open net. Once in a while, you're tracking. Obviously, it's got to be pretty important. But once in a while, you can have a little highway robbery go on. And the old flashy glove saves come in handy. And I tell goalies, and you can appreciate this too, Gary. I'll tell goalies once in a while, once or twice a year, you gotta flash it and hot dog it a little bit. I call them Statue of Liberty saves. I don't know what you call them, windmill saves, but usually you don't want to hot dog it. Every once in a while, you got to show people, what you have, and flash it out there a little bit.
Well,
But
I was never good, so I didn't call it flash in the leather. I called it look what I found. That's what was mine.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, you have to be able to pull off some magic. And I was watching the highlights of last night's exhibition game between Minnesota and Winnipeg, and Helly was in there, and he came up with at least one of those again, where he's I think it was a pass across. I think they were killing a penalty. Guy in a wide open net. He just flies across, flashes the glove out, steals it, wows the crowd. Every once in a while, you gotta show a little Hollywood in you, and you can't do it too often because people get tired of it, and just motivates them even more. But once in a while, in front of the right crowd, you got to do it. Nothing wrong with that. So that makes sense to you?
Yeah, a little showmanship. I like it.
Yep, yep, yep. But how much you do it? If you do it every day, then people just roll their eyes and they get sick of it, and then you're gonna have a bullseye on you even more.
And you don't see
But
any professional goalies acting like that. So that's what another thing. It's not part of the recipe to get there.
yeah, yeah. Every once in a while you'll see it. It's rare, and that's why I tell these young guys to say, "Hey, don't be afraid to do it once in a while." It gives If you do it occasionally, it gives your team, it gives your coaches a little extra shot of confidence in you, like that wow factor. But again, you can't do it very often. So you got to pick your spots. What you want is quiet greatness. But every once in a while, you gotta stand up for yourself, if that makes any sense. So, but so moving on to the flow chart, an incredibly important part of it, and you don't move up and on without it, is your ability to track the puck. And this is not easy to teach because there are no very specific drills. Like you can drill all you want, to seal the ice, work on your stick work, whatever it may be. But tracking is hard. And you've just got to, there's a big difference between, the puck is about this big, right? And a lot of goalies look in the general area, but they're not truly tracking the black. And that's kind of I think it comes and goes for everyone. And when you see goalies get hit in the wrist or they don't handle it, like it hits them on the edge of the glove, that's typically tracking. Or when you see a shot go right by their shoulder or under their glove and they don't even move for it, or they don't move their chin, they don't do this, that's tracking or lack of tracking. So, the guys that see it into their glove are the ones that are going to have more success. But if you can track the puck successfully and consistently, that's a huge deal. And that's another thing that goalie scouts can see immediately. Your ability to track it, your ability to manage the puck really, really well. And rebound or no rebound. And sometimes, shots are tipped and you don't really have much of a chance. But the ones that are clean, the ones you see all the way, or you should see all the way, you've got to manage the puck really well and really cleanly. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, tracking is probably the one on this list that at the NHL level you see the most disparity between professional goalies. And some guys rely on their instinct and their size to be able to make up for their lack of tracking ability, or some guys are better positionally, skating wise, and they can make up for what they lack in tracking.
Yeah, and it comes and goes, Garrick. The tracking comes and goes, but the elite ones do it more consistently than the average NHL goalies, or even below, minor league goalies. It's a very difficult thing to practice, but I think the simpler drills that you do, and it could be a guy with a pile of pucks in a slot, just throwing them fire them at your glove or your blocker or even your chest. I think the simpler the drill, the better, just to track. But I think coaches can tell whether a guy's tracking or not by just watching the guy's chin as the puck goes by. Does he stay with it or does he not stay with it? And it's easy to see. Usually the results are not good if a guy can't track it very well. But the sooner you start at least trying to understand what that's all about. And there's not a lot to it, but it's a matter of, you've got to really zone in on the black and not a general area. And I used to have a kind of a silly drill, but not even a drill, but just an example. I would take like a dinner plate and I would put a puck in the middle of the dinner plate. And I said, a lot of guys don't look at the general area. I said, you've got to shrink it down to the middle right here. And, back in the day, I would catch myself just kind of not looking at the puck, as simple as that sounds. But there's another drill you can do if you're at a game and you're behind the glass as a fan, and really zone in on the puck and track it well, and it looks like it's going slow. It really does. If you're doing it the right way, the puck is not going 100 miles an hour. But if you look at a general area and guys that are ripping the puck, it looks like it's going 1,000,000 miles an hour. But if you're truly tracking it, and I think baseball players could probably relate to this, batters anyway, and how fast that ball's coming at them. What do you think about that analogy?
I was going to say, I have a perfect example for it. And like when I was about 12 years old, they started to let me shag for the Red Sox, like in the outfield. And I remember we were in Toronto, and the first like 5 or 6 balls that got hit to me went 12 feet behind me. Just because the speed and pace, like you were talking about before, is just night and day difference from what I was in at 12 years old to professional baseball. But yeah, when you watch on TV, the puck looks like it's flying all over the place. That's why they had that stupid tracker in the early 2000s, late 90s. But when you're at a game, it is much easier to see the disparity between the black puck on the white ice most of the time.
Yeah. And again, it's not easy to pull out a drill out of your drill book and say, hey, we're going to work on tracking today. I mean, you could apply it to every single drill there is. But it's more of a mental understanding of how important it is. And the guys that get it, can execute it more consistently, and they're going to continuously move up. So next in line is IQ. And this again kind of ties into instincts very heavily, and how you read things in front of you, and starting in the neutral zone, and how many people are driving the net. People without the puck. There's always, good teams always have guys driving hard, and knowing where everybody is, whether it's 5-on-5 or a power play. But there's only a limited number of guys coming at you, so it's your job to start to understand and read plays and read possibilities. And guys that are driving the outside of your, say the dot lane drive, for example, outside of your vision, but coming over the blue line, you know where they are. So you got to do a quick scan. But I think IQ and instinct's almost the same thing. But your smarts in situations that you're in, and they happen very, very fast. You've got to load up and make sure the ice is sealed. In a situation where you don't really know what's going to happen, there's there's 4 or 5 players in front of you. They all weigh 190, 210 pounds, and they're very difficult to move and very difficult to get your eyes on the puck. So you rely on your IQ sometimes and your experience as well. And that kind of ties into size.
Can I ask another question real quick here, Coach, before
Yeah,
we move?
yeah, sure.
So you're just talking about IQ being sort of like instincts, stuff that you've learned along your career, whatever point you're at. But the way I think about it, or you could tell me if I'm off, instincts to me seems more like what a guy comes equipped with, what he's learned from his experience thus far as a goalie, as a hockey player, and then IQ would be more of like curiosity, his understanding beyond the things that are basic instinct for a guy that's played hockey since he was a young kid.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would totally agree with that because, James Reimer, and I worked with James Reimer a little bit, a few years back. He started really late. Yeah, I think he started playing goal at 14, which is incredible considering, he's still in the NHL. And I think Rhymes is 38 years old now. So he's getting up
there, man. He's been there. He's been in
So
the league for a minute.
yeah, he's been around, but like he started late, so his instincts were
37.
oh, he's 37. Yeah, I was
Wow.
close, but the instincts and the IQ, I think that's right on. I mean, his experience, even though it was limited as a youth player, I think he had the IQ. I think he had the smarts to figure it out very, very quickly, and just use his gut to help guide the way and how to play. And so I think you're right on with that. So moving on, the next one, size, is a little bit controversial in a way, and another way it's not. So if you're scouting for a junior team, AAA junior, or even college, I don't think size is as big of a deal. Because the skill level is not that of the, obviously, National Hockey League or even pro hockey in general or European hockey. So I think your battle level comes into play here, but teams look for bigger goalies because when your eyes are taken away, if you're bigger, the puck has a better chance of hitting you, usually in the shoulders or wherever it may be. Smaller guys, they give up more net, but your battle level comes into play. I've got the kid that we saw in video a little while ago, Colton Dean from Arizona, is not a big guy, and I don't really think he's hit his full growth potential yet. I don't think he's grown. He's not done growing, so he may be, I don't know how many inches taller in a few years, but just an incredible young goaltender. Not a big guy yet, but it doesn't really mean that he's not going to be a pro someday. But he certainly should be a really good college goalie. But it's a tough one because if you come out and say, well, you got to be big or you're not going to ever play, then a lot of guys would quit the game, right? But there's a place for undersized goalies, and I'm not quite so sure that down the road Guys that are under 6'2" are going to be still playing, and there are guys in the National Hockey League that are under that size. So generally, when I was with the Islanders, the mentality was we're not going to draft a goalie under 6'2", right? And I kind of get it. It's a tough game. It's a fast game, and you need to be big. You need to be mobile. And I get that mindset, but I see a lot of goalies that are not that big, that are 6 foot, 6'1".
Tim Thomas was 5'11".
What's that?
Tim Thomas is 5'11".
Yeah, there you go. Nashville's goalie, longtime Nashville goalie.
UC.
All right. Yep, UC Soros. I think he's 5'10". I believe he's 5'10". Does that sound right?
I will fact check it real
Yeah.
quick, but that does sound
In
right.
that ballpark. So there are great examples that kind of still motivate.
5'10".
Yeah,
Right in the money,
motivate.
coach.
Yeah. But there are examples like that will certainly keep motivating younger goalies who aren't blessed with size, 6'4", 6'3". So there are plenty of goalies out there that are 6'6", 6'5", that simply don't have the skill set, right? They don't skate very well. So, you've got to find that perfect mix of a guy that's got some size and a guy that has skill set. And it's probably a little more likely that a smaller player is going to have probably a little bit better skill set, a little more refinement to his game than a big tall guy. So it's you take Connor Hellebuyck. Connor Hellebuyck is not when he came up, big guy, 6'4". Was he the best skater around? No, but you know what? He really learned fast, and he made whatever adjustments he needed to make with his game, with his skating game and his instincts and everything else, and he figured it out. And which kind of leads me to, the next one, personality. And I this is as important as any of them, because your personality is going to dictate your work ethic, right? And your personality is going to dictate, how you deal with failure. And if you have the type of personality where you've got to be, pampered all the time, and no one's going to pamper you anyway, the higher you go, they want you to stop pucks, really. That's the main thing. But your personality is going to dictate your training and how seriously you take the game. I think that's really, really important to understand. And this is an area when you're talking about selecting a goalie. I think a lot of teams do not spend enough time. I think they try, but how do you really find out someone's personality? When a guy's in training camp or a tryout scenario, you're going to see usually 99 times out of 100 the best the kid has to offer, right? But over time, the personality, the true personality, good or bad, is going to leak out, right? It's gonna slide out, and but the best test is failure, because if you can, handle failure or manage failure the right way, you're going to succeed. You're going to just get better and better and better. But if your personality doesn't allow you to handle failure in a good way, good luck, right? You find goalies with excuses, and too many turnovers in a game. Well, turnovers happen everywhere. That's how shots on goal are created, right? So
That's the
nine
game.
times out of 10, but usually one team's going one way, they turn over the puck and it's going the other way. Sometimes the turnovers happen 150 feet away, and sometimes they happen 15 feet in front of the net. But goalies can't use excuses, and again, that's tied into your personality. Do you own up to getting beat and just understand what happened and just, okay, move on? Or do you find excuses? So, goalie's personality is critical. And I think one of the most important parts, that's why it's on this list, because I think it's really important for teams to try to understand the personality. The hard part of finding out someone's personality, it takes a while to find out true personality. So that's why would goalie coaches or coaches in general call a goalie's coach, an old coach maybe. Maybe he had a kid 2 years ago, or maybe the current coach, and they'll get a read, and they'll get an honest read, hopefully, on a kid's personality. So all of these things tie in, and they're all critical. It's kind of like golf, Gary, where
I was going to
what's
say
more,
we've given this example about being a golfer or a pitcher on the mound. We've even talked about just that wash it away mentality where you have to be able to move on from mistakes because I mean baseball, golf, these are hockey, these are imperfect games. The best goalies in the world have like a 90 save percentage. So you're going to let in 1 out of every 10 if you're the best in the world. So it's just a mental grind.
yeah, and how you manage that is everything. It really, really is. But when you compare it to the game of golf, what's more important? Your driving game, your iron play, your short game, your putting, your sand play. What's more important?
Drive for
You
show,
can't
putt
say,
for dough.
yeah. Well, but you can't say you can't live without any of those, right? You can't be, a long driver and then have no short game. So they all come into play. To be the best of the best, you've got to be elite at all of those things, and you can't take one part away. And then goaltending is the same way. If you have no pace to your game, no quickness, or your IQ is at a low level, not going to make it. Just simply not going to make it. So that's why it's like a ladder, or pyramid. The higher you go, the more elite it becomes because those guys have figured it all out, or they're going down that road anyway.
Yeah, I like the way this is structured too because it feels like the bottom of it with tracking IQ, size, and personality. Outside of size, those are all things as a human being like you can start to work on. Tracking is obviously not something outside of hockey too crazy, but IQ and personality is something you can always kind of try to work on as a human being.
Yeah.
Instincts and
So
pace, great middle tier. That's more sports oriented, more athletically focused, and then skating, obviously, like you mentioned at the top, is just by far and away the most important part of hockey. It's what separates
yeah,
this sport from all the others.
yeah, yeah. I totally agree with that. So now if you shift to the pro level, say you're a pro scout or you're an organization looking for goaltending, and some teams like to draft goalies and develop them, and some teams like to um, have other teams develop them, and then they'll pick them off for free agency. That angle is a little risky because it becomes pricey. If a guy's any good, and it's going to cost, obviously. You've got to get a guy that you really like and maybe hasn't really crossed that bridge yet, but you think is going to, and the guy has some pro experience. So I think the big ones in that list of items you look for. I think number one is personality. I really do. I think personality is right on top. He's already got the skating part covered. He wouldn't be in the NHL. Um, so now we're talking about goalies already in the NHL or
Yeah, Ass-
really good AHL guys. Yeah, so they're
assessing professional goalies.
yes, yes. So I think your battle level is important. Your personality, I think, is right on top of it. Your instincts, I think those three things are really, really important. And you're not going to get to that level without the basics. Your skating and the pace and everything else. So what you look for, I think, it all comes down to your personality and how you deal with failure and your work ethic. Your personality is going to determine your work ethic. So and it's a gamble because you've seen some guys, Garrett, um, and I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there are plenty of examples of an established NHL goalie who struggles for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden he comes back.
I got a great one
Right?
for you, Coach, and I was going to
What do you got?
actually ask you about that. So I've made it very clear on this podcast I'm a Boston Bruins fan. Uh, 3 years ago, we went out and got a little guy by the name of Linus Olmark, who had spent 5 years toiling around in Buffalo. Hadn't had terrible numbers. He was in the 9.91 save percentage, about 2.5 to 3.0 goals against average. What do you think that the Bruins saw in Buffalo that they could assess from there in playing him a few times, 3 to 4 times a year, that made them think, all right, this guy just has a couple things he needs to do, refine around the edges, and he'll be a Vesna winner, which he was within 2 years.
Yeah, number one had to have been his instincts. So if their scouting department is watching him closely and they identify, there's always lists. Everyone has lists of guys, and Linus is probably, one of 10 goalies on their list, maybe 7 goalies. I don't know. But I think the guy's instincts, and how he approached it. You look at Buffalo and then you compare him to Boston back then when they had a contending team, apples and oranges. Buffalo, probably a very difficult team to play behind as a goalie. Boston, much more structured at the time, better players, and you're not going to be called upon to make just stupid saves all the time. So I think a player's instincts and his instincts and his personality, I think, have everything to do with it. Of course, skill level is very, very important. But I think, I think anyone watching, you don't have to meet the guy. Just watch him and just check out his instincts. Is he right or is he wrong? Most of the time. And sometimes you could do the right thing and still get burned, but scouts or coaches know what the right thing to do in this certain situation, what that right thing is. And if the guy tries to pull it off, it just doesn't work out. They still know. Don't worry about it. It's okay. But I think those two things are very identifiable. Personality, you've got to do your homework behind the scenes to find out what kind of guy the guy is. Is he a jackass in the locker room? And I know plenty of guys that played in the National Hockey League that were complete assholes in the locker room. Their off-ice habits come into play. Just the way they fit in or don't fit in to a room. They might try too hard, things like that. And those are the ones that you typically will see have been on like 5 or 6 or 7 teams throughout their career. Not necessarily everyone, because Eric Comrie is a great example. He's been with several organizations, but he's a class act.
Or Flower, just retired.
Oh,
Marc-Andre
yeah, yeah.
Fleury.
Yeah, he may be the most revered player in the National Hockey League in the last 30 years.
And he's been on a bunch of teams, and he's been screwed in a couple places. So
yeah, it happens.
That's the business.
But his reputation is out there. So you know what you're getting. You're getting a class individual, a high-quality person.
Stellar
and that's
guy.
it. Yeah. So, your reputation typically precedes you. And in his case, it certainly does. Eric Comrie certainly does. Just a class act. And they've both been with multiple teams. But you've got to do your homework. You have to do your homework. And reclamation projects are risky, but that will come down to the goaltender's personality, whether or not you think someone is salvageable. And, like a Tim Thomas, for example, right? Because he didn't make it right out of the University of Vermont. He spent a number of years in Finland before he got a shot over here. And again, not a big guy, but he battled.
He was very close to being out of hockey altogether at one point before he made it.
Yeah. You imagine that, if that never happened, right?
For me personally, no, Coach, I can't imagine.
Yeah. But again, going back to, if you're scouting a young guy, if you're in the middle of a training camp, AAA tryout or junior tryout, there are certain things you look for. But skill set is very big as you're younger. And then as you get older, your personality, I think, is really critical. And for a team to make an intelligent decision on pulling a trigger, paying a guy millions of dollars to play, I think your personality is obviously you can play, but your personality is going to dictate so many things, especially when times are hard. So I think, to me, that's just my opinion, but that's how I would do it.
I think that's bang on, Coach. When I asked you about Linus, what my summation, whatever I'm looking for, whatever that word is, was that they took Linus because the guy he was for Swayman coming up and Brandon Busty in Providence if Swayman didn't work out. He was a great stepping stone. That's a horrible word to use for a guy that's a Vezina winner, but he was a great transitional period. He's a great leader. He wasn't going to try to tell Swayman, this is my job, get out of here, kid. They were very close, and he helped him develop into the guy that he is now.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because these younger goalies, the thing that is so competitive now, but I always manage to tell them you really got to get along well with your goalie partner because you need each other, and you know what each other's going through, especially when it all hits the fan, right? So you got to beat each other's corner, and but there are some guys out there who just don't get that, and it's like it's me against him, and it's my job versus his job, and screw him and all this. You don't want that. That doesn't do anyone any good. All it does is create an atmosphere that's really toxic.
That's
And
part of that
yeah,
personality assessment.
exactly, yeah. So I think that was a great maneuver by Boston to get both of those guys. They're a great up and coming goalie back then in Swayman, and and a great fit to help him learn a little bit. And at some point, the Winnipeg Jets with Hellier, I mean, towards the end of his career, they got to do the same thing, and bring in someone that that can work with him and also learn, and willing to learn, and willing to take a back seat for a little bit and slowly slide into it.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it's like drafting your quarterback a year or two before your guy retires. You want him to get tutelage from the guy that's been your franchise for a decade plus.
yeah, yeah, and the difference maker is personality, I think. Find
Absolutely.
out again, and I mentioned before, you got to find out the guy's personality, but you do that through homework, and typically coaches that you reach out to are not going to lie. Uh, you learn to trust their word, and if someone bullshits you, then not to go back to that guy, obviously. But you typically have a pretty good circle of people in the industry that you trust and that you go to, and you rely on them to tell you the truth. It's no different than a coach telling his player the truth. You got to do it that way. And some coaches don't have the ability to do that. They just shy away from conversation altogether. But getting back to, you know, setting the foundation for your goaltending, I think these are the things that are really, really important.
I agree, Coach. Like we were talking about the personality thing is. I don't know a better reason at the time that I could think of for having a guy like Linus in front of Swayman, and it's paid
Yep.
dividends to his
Yeah.
mentality, personality, and his ability to bounce back from the last 2 years, which have not been great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there are many other organizations, like Gibson in Anaheim, and who's the other goalie who's now taken over in Anaheim? Uh, Scouted him when I was with New York. I'm trying to remember his name, but he's taken over
Gibson,
Anaheim's role. He was with Gibson in Anaheim for a few years. Gibson's now in Detroit. Who's a goalie in Anaheim?
he's on Anaheim right now.
Yeah, they're number one.
Uh, uh
Remember his name? Well, let's figure it out.
Huso, Mrazek,
Not Mrazek, not Huso. I
Lucas
know they
Dostal.
resigned him. Dostal. Dostal. He's the guy. So he's their Dostal is Anaheim's future. And I think they're
Born
very
in
wise.
2000. My God.
Yeah. It's just a kid, right? So he's 25, but he's got a couple of years under his belt. So I know former Anaheim coach Greg Cronin, who had the helm there for a couple of years in Dostal's rookie season and year number two. And I remember telling him at a text, I said, just stick with Dostal. He's going to be fine. Um, when I was with New York, we had a list of goalies, and Dostal was on. We had to draft a goalie that year, and Dostal was really high on the list. And I liked him a lot. Everyone liked him a lot. And we all knew he was going to be pretty good. And they wound up, they took him in the draft. But and I remember telling Crow, just be patient with him, let him play, just give him minutes. And Anaheim wasn't, a favorite to win the cup, right? It's been a while, right? So that didn't really matter, but you could groom a goalie pretty well. Just give him minutes, and whoever the goalie coach is there, just be patient with him. Your organization and whole in general, be patient with him, and they've done that.
They have a fun little team, so I hope he's gets
Yeah,
there quick.
yeah, he's gonna be fine. He's gonna be fine, I think. I think he's got decent size, but his skill set is really high end, and I think personality wise, he's a good kid. So he's going to be around for a while. But I think there's a great example. They kept John Gibson around. So Gibson, I've never met John Gibson, but I know that he's supposed to be a pretty good dude. But I think they did that to kind of help use him as a mentor, to Lucas Dahlstrom. And so there are situations where you got a guy, an older guy that's probably going to be done here shortly, but use him.
He's got more
Use
to
him.
give.
What's that?
I said he's got more to give the game before he leaves.
Oh, 100%.
Even
And I
if
think
it's
baseball does that quite a bit too, don't they?
absolutely. Clayton
Yeah.
Kershaw might not be on the postseason roster was a big discussion, and Dave Roberts was like, absolutely not. He's one of the most experienced playoff guys on our roster. Like having him there, even just to be there for other pitchers, is a big enough plus to
Yeah.
have him on there.
Yeah. I mean, and we're in a position like no different than pitching where confidence is so critical. Your goalie coach can tell you, but when you got your playing partner who's got years of experience in that league and has had success, when he tells you, it has even more meaning. And you need to hear it from someone that you trust. But that's why it's really important to have that, if at all possible. Again, that goes down to personality, having the right guys in your organization. Because I know some goalies that just wouldn't give their goalie partner the time of day. As difficult as that is to believe, it happens, and it's not a perfect world we live in.
Yep. You got anything else, Coach?
No, I think I exceeded my word limit today, but that's okay.
We
No.
love it. Do you wanna
What
do
about you?
you wanna do a trivia
Go
question
ahead.
before we get out of here?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. I apologize if you've heard this one before, but I'm a history nerd. I don't know if you are, but being my dad's friend, I would assume you are as well. Uh, what is the only NHL team name that is derived from the U.S. Civil War?
Rangers. No, really? Let's see. Let's
This
see.
one, I remember when I heard this, I was like, "What? Doesn't even make
I
sense."
thought sure it would be the Rangers, but Civil War. What is it? I give up.
The Calgary Flames.
Okay,
So
okay,
when
okay.
they were originally in Atlanta, and they were named after the famous Civil War burning of the city of Atlanta. So
Yeah,
when they moved from Atlanta to Calgary, they kept the name Flames because of the oil rigs, and same as Edmonton, that's a lot of their industry, and fire and oil
yeah.
is a lot of symbolism in the field. So they've just kept Calgary Flames, and it's a
Boy,
U.S. Civil War nickname.
uh, I keep the trivia coming because I'll get one right there sooner or later.
Those are so good though; those are hard. But
I
if you
love
hadn't
it.
heard that one before, there was no way.
No, I had not heard that. I was actually thinking of American teams,
Yep,
and
that's the what? Why are the
trick.
Calgary Flames named
What?
after?
Yeah. Civil War deal. But no, it's good stuff. I like it. I
All
like
right,
it.
Coach. I'll see you this
Keep
time
those
next
coming.
week.
Have a good one next week.
Yep, absolutely. We'll see you guys. We'll be up on Saturday with our next episode. We'll see you next week.
All right, have a good one.